Hello, everyone. My name is Franklin Johnson. I'm the chair of the Clark County Commission on Aging, and our work session is now started. Just remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. For those in the room, you need to press the button on your microphone to speak and press it again to mute. When the light at the bottom of the mic turns green when unmuted and red when muted. When you speak, please turn your mic on and state your name so that everyone can track who is speaking. Now for our first item, we have a get to know Ellen.
Okay. Ellen, would you like me to share what we asked you to respond to?
If you would like to.
Okay. Staff, we looked back at the retreat agenda that the rest of you all participated in several months back before Ellen joined the commission, and we pulled off some of the questions that you all answered during that meeting and then sent them to Ellen to respond to, just to try to integrate her and catch her up a little bit, joining you all a few months later this year. So the rest of the group doesn't know the prompts we sent you, Ellen, so I don't know if you want us to read them before you respond or if that would help.
That's fine.
Okay, so the first question was, you're invited to speak to a 10th grade class about aging. What would you tell your high school students?
Okay, so I think I took this kind of as the process of aging. So the one thing that I would tell 10th grade students who are all very young is to be open to learning and flexibility, and to know that your life is not going to always follow the same trajectory that you have set out in 10th grade, and be willing to take a chance and be flexible and learn as you go. That would be probably the big advice I would give to any 10th grade student.
All right, so the next prompt was, the Aging Readiness Plan covers healthy communities, housing, mobility, emergency preparedness, and civic involvement. And based on your experience, what are 2 areas of need that you see within these topical areas out in our community?
So the first one I would say is definitely housing. I mean, I think that's a core foundational need. It's a human right for every person, whether or not you're in an aging community or not. So I would definitely put my vote against housing as being one of the more important issues that we need to address in our community. And everything I've read in the last couple months basically points that housing is definitely a challenge for everyone in the community, and especially people who are aging. The second one I looked at was the mobility, and a lot of mobility challenges, I think, come from the fact that we're living in this very car-based and car-dependent community in Clark County, with the spread that we have and the sprawl, and the fact that many people are living in far-flung areas, as far-flung as Ridgefield. I mean, Ridgefield isn't that far away, but to think about like riding your bike to Vancouver from Ridgefield, you know, you're only going to do that if you're Lance Armstrong on a daily basis. So those would be the 2 things that I think are really important for people in our community.
Okay, and then the third question is, the commission has implemented a variety of approaches and strategies over the years, from fireside chat conversations to hosting community events and developing community resources. Are there particular approaches you would be most interested in participating in and prioritizing during your tenure on the commission?
Yep, definitely. I think the community events and outreach is probably the space that I would love to be active in. I also love the idea of fireside chats and engagement, and making sure that everybody gets to take part in the conversation and the learning that takes place in those fireside chats. I've been at 2 of them so far, and I thought they were really a great opportunity for learning. So those are my things.
Okay. Well, thank you for responding to those. And we have just a couple minutes if other commission members want to ask Ellen any questions that you haven't had a chance to ask her yet since she's joined.
This is Franklin Johnson. Tell us something about yourself that we don't know.
Well, Cass already knows this because I just told it to her, but kind of a climbing addict, mainly gym climbing, but rock climbing is kind of my jam. It's one of the ways that I really got to cement my relationship with my son, and then it's also helped me form great bonds with quite a few, well, 5 or 6 really good girlfriends, and then just the Source is an amazing resource in our community, so anybody who wants to go climbing with me, I am welcome. This is your offer. Come with me. It's super fun. So that's something people don't know. Well, actually, most people do know because I talk about it all the time.
Thank you. Any other commission members have any questions?
Clark. Mm-hmm. So I teach American government. That was Justin speaking. I teach at Clark College, I teach American government. So I teach my classes mainly just online. I haven't taught in the classroom since 2017 there. But it's online, and so it's a class about, you know, Congress, the Supreme Court, the presidency, and then all the other informal institutions that make up our American federal government.
I just have a follow-up question. You had mentioned that you were talking to 10th graders, but you say you're teaching at college.
Yes. So I teach at Clark, and Clark is actually a lot of running. Most of my class, 75% of my class is probably running start. And so I teach a lot of 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. And I'm always amazed in the beginning, they really know nothing about politics because it's a taboo subject, nobody wants to talk about it. And so one of my big goals in the class is to get my students to learn how to have a conversation about politics. So I give them easy topics to talk about, like, is the Supreme Court political? Or does the president have a lot of power? And I give them that chance to kind of examine these questions and have a conversation with their peers about those questions. And I mean, there's some right answers and some wrong answers, but in the end, it's, you know, you could go either way on both of those. So it's fun.
Anyone else? Thank you for sharing these intimate
Anytime.
details about yourself. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
once again, welcome to the commission.
Thank you.
Now let's move on to old business and updates. Has everyone had a chance to review the October 18th meeting notes? Any comments, changes? Okay, so we'll go ahead and look at approving those in our regular meeting. Can we hear from the Community Engagement Subcommittee?
Susan, would you like to give a little bit, or should I give a little overview? What do you think?
It's up to you. If you'd like to give an overview, then I can fill in details, or I was prepared to speak in the work session if you'd like me to.
Go for it.
Okay. So what I want to give everyone an overview of the work that the subcommittee has been doing, and then get a head nod type of approval for proceeding with the proposed implementation plan. So the goal that the subcommittee was working on was to get a document out into the community in potentially new locations that helps connect people to the resources that they need by implementing priority aging readiness plan strategies. And the subcommittee met 3 times, with the final meeting just this week on Monday. And at the same time, staff and the commission chair and vice chair have been meeting with Christina Marnaris from ADSWA to get some additional information from ADSWA about what their needs are for implementation. And the 2 Aging Readiness Plan strategies that we're focusing on are educating older adults and caregivers on compiled information and resources provided by ADSWA, and teaming with the Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities of Southwest Washington, neighborhood associations, and other partner agencies to share and distribute best practices for reaching older adults. So in some of the meetings and coordinating with Christina with ADSWA, they preferred starting with a plan to have a small distribution of resources as a test to see how it goes, and starting with public agencies and groups because they believe that would reach the people with the greatest need. And they'd also like to focus, like I mentioned, on organizations that they've not had much contact with, and one of those was, those include libraries, neighborhood associations, and faith-based organizations. So we came up with a proposed implementation plan that we presented to the subcommittee on Monday, and we got approval to move forward to presenting it to you today. And that plan includes posting a resource with some basic information about ADSWA on the county website, emailing it to all of the city and county neighborhood associations, having ADSWA give a presentation to the neighborhood association president groups to reinforce that message and allow for questions and that type of thing. Distributing that handout to libraries and also city halls and the county public service center here in this building. And again, we had a little bit of conversation about the fact that this is an approach for testing this deployment of resources, and this is something that we may use again in the future for material, probably different materials, but materials that might apply to whatever we're focusing on, such as next year we're going to be focusing on emergency preparedness. So we want to see how this goes and possibly use this process again in the future. So like I said, I'm hoping that the commission can ask any questions that you may have and then get a general approval for moving forward.
Thank you, Susan. Now can we get an update on the 2023 annual report?
Is it okay if I see if anybody has any questions and if we get approval for, or do you want to come back to that?
We can go ahead and do that now. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the community engagement report?
I have a lot of questions as I was on that subcommittee, but I wasn't able to make it on Monday. So is that list that you just mentioned, Sue, is that the extent of the people that we're going to try to disseminate this to, as opposed to, I didn't hear anything in there about like hospitals, like discharge rooms and stuff of that nature, to getting those same resources and some of those key elements. Are those is this just tip of the iceberg, like this is the first go around of where we're going to go with it and then build from there? Okay, cool.
It's okay, so I'll pop in. Yeah, so I think that the idea of scaling it up was something that Christina and ADSWA was really beginning to think about. So our conversations are we coming are we coming out really, really strong? And perhaps thinking about that capacity. And so one of the things that Christina said she would really value is if we start with some of these real high contact places first, let this kind of, let them collect some data on that. And then from there, we can, as we're beginning to make contacts, we can continue to make lists and things to think about all these other places that are really specific. So it felt like, given on the short term, that this was something that was very doable for us to hit, 15 libraries, the city sort of centers there, and then we're building a list of faith communities. We're doing a little bit of research. I'm doing a little bit of research and have some great suggestions about places where faith leaders may gather, so that ADSWA can go and give conversations at those sort of breakfasts or coffees as another step.
And as ADSWA, they're the ones that are going to actually do the outreach and go and meet with these people and deliver the pamphlet. That's not us doing that?
Well, that's something that, for our part, that we can, there's, I think, 15 libraries, the city centers in each of the sort of cities around city halls. So there's a relatively short list of places where, if any commission members would like to help deliver an envelope of some of those, they have the two different materials. They have the rack card and the fridge magnet. And so the idea being, maybe there's a little note in there about ADSWA and thinking about how you can disseminate this information. And we would do we could help with the initial drop-off. I think staff has said that's something that they could do as well. I personally want to go out and just drop them off. We're not going to be recharging those materials right away, but just that initial drop-off from the Commission on Aging, here we are. So if folks have time, they can certainly drop off an envelope or two, and if not, that's fine too.
So we're still at a point where we haven't we don't understand exactly who's doing what as far as delivering stuff out to the community, to these locations.
So we were hoping to get general approval, and then we are setting up a meeting with Christina to develop the details, and we will email the subcommittee about if they'd like to help, and if not, staff will implement the plan, and if subcommittee members are available to help, then we'll organize that, is generally what we were thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Just a quick, Ken, do you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions or comments. Thank you for asking.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this particular one before we move forward? Okay, let's move on to the 2023 annual report.
I think she was looking for a vote. Is that correct?
So not a formal vote, but just maybe a head nod type of vote. I'm seeing general head nodding, but does anyone have any concerns before we move forward?
If we were to have a vote, I would tell you, this is Ken, I would tell you that I would be abstaining.
Okay, would you like to clarify that a little bit?
I don't think that we've got a plan, and I still have concerns that we're putting all of our eggs in one basket. I appreciate the context and the color that I've been provided in this, but at this point, I just think that that's where I am on this issue.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? One thing I think we need else hearing this feedback?
Ken, could you, oh, okay. I think we should be good now.
One thing I think we need to be concerned about, we're going into the holiday season, and we're basically kind of off until January. So I think we need to probably look at our personal schedules to see if, to what extent we're able to support this effort, or if we wanted to table it until the beginning of the year. So can I hear some thoughts on that?
This is Ken again. I would strongly recommend, I don't think that it sounds like you've got plenty of support for this to move forward, and I would encourage you to move forward for what it's worth.
I agree. I think we should move forward with it as well, personally. Keep the ball moving forward. We can tweak it and fix it as it goes. This is just step one to get some things out into the public, and it's not like it's a dead-end initiative at that point. So we have a chance to pivot if we decide we want to expand or tweak it to make it better. But let's not put the brakes on it. Let's continue the ball moving forward.
Completely
Okay.
agree.
Anyone else?
I would add that it's a test of concept, right? So there's nothing to be lost for distributing materials in December to these, very targeted areas, and then figuring out where the materials are ending up, if they're being taken or not, and then you can do a more broad sweep later.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that particularly during these next few months, particularly around holiday time, is when there can be isolation and despair is really felt. And so if for no other reason, getting this information to libraries and to city centers, if people are seeing others who are in distress, there will be information, very timely information that might be able to be used, particularly this time of year.
Anyone else? Well, it seems then that we are in general head-nodding agreement that we move forward with the plan. Last chance for comments. Okay, then. Let's move on to the 2024 work plan updates.
Yeah, Franklin, I think you just skipped over the annual report update. So can we do that one first?
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's back up to the annual report for 2023.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those who haven't met me yet, if there's anyone, I'm Amy Wooten, and I'm going to be working with the commission moving forward, and I work in community planning. My first charge was the annual report. And so just as a brief update, we've provided a draft of the document for your review. It hasn't been formatted yet, so it's going to look much better once we get it through the formatting stage. The communications will be doing that once the content is completed. There are two items that we're going to add to the document before it's published. One will be the letter from the commission chair, and I believe Franklin is working on it, or he has submitted it to us for review. I think I saw an email from you, Franklin, didn't I?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Did you? Okay.
And then we're also going to provide inside the document a summary or an at-a-glance that you can just look at and see how the commission is, or the Clark County is moving forward on all of the goals and strategies that are identified in the Aging Readiness Plan. On the agenda for the regular COA meeting, staff will be looking for formal direction from commission members if we should be moving forward with the language that we presented to you for the annual report or not. If it is approved today, we will forward it to the community planning director for his approval and the communications team for formatting. and we're scheduled to publish it in January. Does anybody have any questions for me?
How are you getting that draft to us? When are you getting that draft?
I think that there should have been a draft included in your materials that you received last week.
Oh, for this meeting? Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Well, I'll just say I'm really looking forward to it. It was a really, really busy year last year, and it's lovely to have it all in one place, down on paper for others to see.
Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone for the work that they've done this year to contribute to the annual report. Some of the people are no longer here because they've stepped off the committee, but for those of you who are here, thank you for your efforts. It's really appreciated. Now can we go to the 2024 work plan updates?
So this is Susan again. We've been focusing primarily on scheduling the joint Commission on Aging and Clark County Council meeting. We're hoping that's going to be in January. Per your bylaws, it's supposed to be in January, but due to scheduling conflicts, we've had it in February in the past few years, but we're trying to move it back to January, and we are going to be consulting with council at a meeting that they have each week called Council Time on November 29th to be sure that we can secure that date. And so we'll continue to work on that and getting that scheduled, and continue to work on the rest of the 2024 work plan as well.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone have any questions or comments on that?
Can you share that date in January? Am I supposed to know that? That you're shooting for?
It is January, I think it's the 17th, January 17th. It's the regular meeting time.
Okay.
The county council just comes to the regular Commission on Aging meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Will that be in the other room, or?
Yes, to be determined, not sure yet. We'll talk about that as well, since we have this scheduling issue, and how we'll handle that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to new business. Specialized housing, PACE, and the Philida Park project update.
This is Jenna again. So I have this update. Some of you may recall that Specialized Housing is one of the organizations that requested a letter of support from you all earlier this year for a project they're working on out in Philida. It's a senior housing project for seniors who are very low income, as well as would also have a PACE component, which provides all-inclusive care to the broader community for those who qualify for that type of those types of services. And so Susan and I met with the project staff fairly recently, and first of all, they wanted to extend their gratitude to you all for writing the letter. They have used it to submit with several of their applications because they're working on pinning down the rest of the financing to make the project happen. So they wanted to extend their thanks. Then the other piece is, they're in a phase where they are trying to get, continue to get political support and the rest of their financing pinned down. So they wanted to see if any of you are really interested in that project and want to be more involved and help this organization get it to the finish line, feel free to reach out to staff and we can connect you with the folks involved in the project. They're looking for folks to talk to politicians and, things like that. So if it's of interest, just let us know. So that's all we have for that update.
Thank you, Jenna. For those who didn't catch it, could you repeat what PACE stands for?
I think it stands for Program for All-Inclusive, that's not quite right. It's something like Program for All-Inclusive Care, but that doesn't quite match the letters in that acronym. But it's something like that. It's a very specific type of program. I believe, so Clark County doesn't currently have one. There's only like the funding for a program like this, there's limited funding. So like if one program gets started in Clark County, it's unlikely another one would be allowed in Clark County, at least for a very long time. So this is bringing a first of its kind program to this part of the state, but they do exist in other parts of the state. And it is the Program of All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly.
Thank you, Jenna. Anyone have any comments, questions about that?
Is that different? I'm sorry, this is Ken White. Jenna, is that different than the PACE program?
Oh, no, it is a PACE program. So they're building a housing project, and on the bottom floor, they're building space to offer a PACE program as well. So it is.
Thank you. That's a spectacular program. Thank you.
Dick Claremont here, and I don't remember if we talked about the number of people who would be living there or the number of units. I don't remember that conversation, but do you have that information?
Yeah, I believe it's 65 units that they're building, but we can double check that. I know we looked at their application more closely a while ago. Okay, 62 units, excuse me. And it's for, you have to be very low income to qualify, so there'll be income thresholds to qualify for the housing.
Thank you.
A question about that. Do they have a waiting list, and how long is the waiting list?
I don't know if we know that. I think at this point, they are trying to get the rest of the money to make sure the project happens. So they've got all they're ready, they've got their plans approved to do the building, they have some financing secured. At this point, they're just trying to get the money to finish building. So I don't know about programmatically if they have a waiting list or not yet.
Jenna, this is Ken. May I make a comment related to that?
Sure.
My comment is, first of all, affordable housing for seniors, literally in every city, as you know, I'm in that industry, and every city has waiting lists in every building. So even if they haven't pre-marketed it, I suspect that they would find an overwhelming demand. And HUD actually has special financing for these hybrid programs where PACE is an anchor tenant in an affordable housing senior living community. And it's just a fantastic model for the community.
Thanks, Ken.
Anything else on? Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, let's move on to reports and communications. And can we start out with liaison reports first?
So I was at ADSWA's meeting today. So I just wanted to kind of go over some of the highlights from that. Again, lots of information. They go through a lot of stuff pretty quick. So people weigh in from different parts of the county, of Southwest Washington. So there's people in Waukegan County and, you know, all the different entities and stuff. So things and most of those ones were pretty much just kind of giving a little update on things that they're doing in their locales. Mary Ann came on and was talking about the question of how do we connect with seniors in community. I mean, this seems to be a common conversation. And one of the things she said is that they were having the conversation and then they were realizing, well, wait a minute, we're all seniors. So, so it's realizing that there's seniors at different levels in the community and knowing that it's not just, we're talking about a very wide range of demographic ultimately, between age and also health condition, right? So that was interesting. They talked about participating in employee benefits fairs up in Longview area, and they're also offering a 6-week caregivers class that's being promoted up there. There's a lot of activity in the Kelso Longview area in regards to this. They seem to be very forward-thinking and trying to expand their reach. They're also part of something called HOPE, which is Dementia Support Group for Caregivers. So that's other thing that was brought into things. Who else? They talked about the YMCA, using the YMCA as a place for medical enrollment classes. Up there is what they're doing. So using the local understood common place where people gather and setting that up to have a resource there for people to be able to enroll in Medicare and navigate that system a little bit better. So thought that was smart and brilliant. And then Mike Reardon, who is the executive director over there, usually has a very good report of things that are happening. He brought up the movie that they had. They actually showed a movie in 2 different locations for people called Wine, Women, and Dementia. And they said it was really, really compelling and that people should try to watch that if they can. And I haven't seen it, but I really want to now. So.
What was that title again?
Wine, Women, and Dementia. And then also here again talking about the high school home health aid programs that they're trying to implement as well. Cascadia Tech, Waukegan County Schools up there, they're talking about having a summer school class to offer that for kids so that they can take that class during the summer and not interrupt the rest of their curriculum, but then be able to be caregivers in their community, limited caregivers. They're not CNAs or anything of that nature. Kelso, however, does have a larger program where they're actually producing CNAs out of high school. So they're not really, they're on a different track of their own, basically. And then further up the ladder, when he starts talking about the state level and the directors meeting that they have, they were talking about one of the things they asked for this year, as well as a $15.2 million grant for senior nutrition. So they're really recognizing the fact that they were missing the mark on getting meals out to everybody that could potentially need them, and that people are going hungry, and it's not okay. So, yeah. Mike himself actually said he went on a meal delivery ride-along and to make some of his own observations on what was going on out there. And he said it was really encouraging that the drivers that are out there doing it know their routes very well. They seem to know their people that they're delivering to, and it's a very personal thing where people are excited to see them when they come and show up. And there's good interaction. There's people actually checking on the people, not just dropping the meal on their door, but they're knocking on the door, open it, just check and make sure they're okay. So he said that was very positive. So the sad part about it was just seeing some of the living conditions, the dilapidated homes, things of that nature. He said some of the elderly would come outside to come get their food because they didn't want people coming up to or into the houses and things of that nature. So that's out there big time. He did talk about the Fly to Park, as you just mentioned as well. That's something that I think everybody is hoping very much to see that take traction, because if we can do one, then we can do more, right, in theory. So they're requesting for the senators of Washington to maintain COVID-19 level funding for aging services. So, during COVID-19, obviously that funding was ramped up. They're saying, well, can we keep it at that level to be able to provide more resource across all these levels? And then there's a House Bill 1859, which is pretty important out there that I don't think any of us really know about, but essentially it's getting assisted living in adult family homes to have the same rights as some of the other other medical providers out there. So things that they don't currently have is right to have visitors, the protection from loss and theft, protection from unlawful discharge or eviction, right to formal grievance policy, and the ability to choose their primary physician, so the attending physician. Things that you would think that they would already have, but that doesn't exist, so they're trying to get that implemented. So if you see House Bill 1859 and we have any ability to weigh on that, then you might want to weigh in its favor. And then there's also the discussion of the Washington Cares. I don't know if everybody knows about that, but it's, primarily through employers, and you have to, people that are working are putting money into this long-term care trust fund so that they will have some resources in the event that they become disabled or injured or out of work or something of that nature. And the ADSWA call center, ADSWA has actually partnered with them to be able to take some of those calls now too. So they're trying to create a vessel for people to navigate that resource also, because as we know, all the things they put out there require professionals to be able to get you through the process. And they're also saying that the Washington Cares, there's an initiative to make it optional to where if you're in the workforce, you don't have to contribute to that if you don't want to. So that's kind of cool too for some people, I suppose, that have other alternatives or things like that. And Christina had, and I think I could possibly share some of the highlights with you from it, the whole draft of what ADSWA's initiatives are coming forward for 2024 and the action plans up through 2027 of the things that they're key focusing on. So I don't know if I want to try to go through that whole entire thing right now, but I think those are things that we should maybe as a group we can use those as a resource to kind of reflect off of in future meetings as other things come up. And I'll have take some time to kind of go through it and extract the key points because it's like a 10-page document. And we're not doing that right now. So, but anyway, their meetings are always great. They do definitely make an impact, and in our community, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things actively. That's what's so fun about actually going there and listening to their reports of the things that they're doing, from just like the passion from the people that are running those agencies in those other counties and the activities that they're putting in place, like potlucks and stuff, just really trying to engage on those levels. And they're smaller communities, so I think it's a little bit easier for them to reach the people that they need to reach versus we've got a giant, that we're trying to break down piece by piece. So anyhow, and the Cowlitz County has put together a homeless housing task force. So Clark County is probably not far behind. As you know, we've recently declared a state of emergency for homeless in Vancouver, which is well overdue. So that's all I got, I think. Anybody have any questions?
On that $15 million grant, this is Franklin Johnson, is that $15 million grant cover actual food and the delivery thereof?
Yes, I believe it's intended to support the programs of food delivery and I think to expand that as well. So try to get it out to more people.
Okay, thank you.
This is Ellen. I just have a question. Do the unions, the caregiver unions, come to these meetings? Are they involved? I have a friend who's being trained via the union to be a caregiver for her elderly father-in-law. And so I was just wondering, I know that's another avenue for training people to be caregivers.
That's an excellent point. And no, they do not come to not the meetings that I saw. And they might participate maybe at the state level. I would hope to think that they might be engaged. They're engaging them. They should be, because, well, for all the obvious reasons, in their training capacity and the benefit that they would have from that as well, because unions benefit from having more people in the organization. Yep. So, yeah, that's somebody who should certainly be engaged in some of this, you would think, right? Good point. I'll ask that question next time.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, this is Cass. Thank you, Justin, for all of this information to not only think about and absolutely to talk about at later meetings so that we can think about how to integrate some of our work with that moving forward, because clearly there are so many great people working at grassroots level that we certainly can connect with. So thank you.
And I think that that's the big takeaway from it all, is that when you actually go to ADSWA and see what they're doing, and you can actually see all the people that are doing stuff. You know, we talk about things and putting things in place and making things happen. Well, there's a lot of people out there that have been making things happen for a long time, and their experience is paramount. We can benefit from listening to what they have to say, what their experiences have been, what's been successful and what hasn't. So the collaboration is important for us to tie in with those groups, as we've already started to do. So.
Okay, thank you. That was a great report. Ken and I are the liaison and alternates for public health, and we had a quick call yesterday with David Hudson and Amy Koski, I believe it is. I apologize if I'm not getting that pronunciation right. And it's kind of interesting to know that they had conducted a community health survey, and they're looking at using that information to put together their 5-year strategic plan in 2024. And a couple of the main issues that they found as a result of that survey was community connections that were broken or, you know, not flowing as it normally would, and also mental and behavioral health issues. So they spent also some considerable effort in soliciting feedback regarding substance abuse as well. They're also working on a climate change initiative that they will be rolling out a little bit later. And Ken, I wanted to give you a chance. If you have some additional comments, I'd like you to make those.
I've just got to tell you, in the 2 or 3 conversations that we've had with the pair of them, I have been just so pleasantly surprised by their engagement, their willingness to partner, their willingness to share and follow up on our questions. It's been very impressive.
In the interest of time, I'm going to keep that short. Is there any questions on the public health? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the recent presentations at Airport Green and Arnada neighborhoods.
Yes, so staff made presentations to those 2 neighborhood associations. Franklin joined us at both of those meetings, and the presentation was a shortened version of the presentation given to you by our consultant, Dudek, Rose, you may remember, on the Aging Readiness Plan update. And it was, both presentations went really well. They were interested in the update and had a few questions, and I think appreciated the opportunity to find out a little bit more about the commission and the plan. And especially at Airport Green, I think there was some interest in next year's topic about emergency preparedness as well. So just wanted to give you an update and let you know that happened.
Thank you, Susan. I thought it was real interesting that in the Airport Green Neighborhood Association meeting, Ross Montgomery, who was the founder of the Neighborhood Association and also its chair, recently passed this summer. This was, I think, the first meeting they had had since that. And I was very impressed to find that they were very committed to honoring some of the core principles and initiatives that he was moving forward. So I was very pleased to see that. I got to know Ross through the, the Neighborhood Transportation Safety Alliance, and he's been a very, very active community member and leader in that aspect. So it was pleased to see that. Also at the Arnada, am I pronouncing that right, Arnada? The mayor was in attendance and provided an update, as well as they Interstate Bridge Replacement Group was there, and they gave a presentation also. It's really pleasing to see the effort to which they're going to extend community engagement by going to neighborhood association meetings, and just about, if anybody calls to say, we want some information, they're willing to come out and give it. So that was good to see as well. Any questions or comments on those? Okay, are there any other communications?
I was watching a gardening program the other day, and this one lady talked and said that she had had a garden when she had a home, and then she went into a home and no longer had that, and that she had been hooked up with some garden somewhere where she was able to fulfill that desire for her. Larry has pointed out that where he lives, they encourage people to go out and volunteer. So I was thinking about that, and I know we have gardens. We have the Columbia Springs Garden. We have the Landscape Botanic Gardens in Brush Prairie. We have wildlife refuges. There's the Pacific Gardens over by the Wilco, that's on the east side of town. So I was wondering if we could do some sort of link or network with some of these gardens, and maybe this isn't the place to bring it up, but maybe in our other general meeting. So anyway, I'm proposing that we do some sort of networking with some of these gardens in the area for those that need that sort of activity in their lives. And this is Mel, by the way.
Thank you, Mel. That's a great idea. I don't remember specifically because it was a few years ago, but on the Vancouver Community Development Block Grant Program, where they hear proposals for funding every year, one was a community garden that they were setting up. So I think it might be good to follow up on that and be able to share where these community or public gardens are, so that people have access to them when they're living in these facilities. Any other comments on that?
That's a great point, Mel. There are quite a few resources that we could connect people with, like through the food bank. I think they have a community garden. There's the one at 78th Street. I think Ridgefield has a community garden. There's the one at the Lupke Center at the Marshall, over by Clark. So there's community gardens all around the area where people could take part in gardening activities, or there's a way to help encourage places, facilities to have community gardens as well, or have them at the schools. I mean, they're a great resource for people to learn.
Will you and Mel be willing to work on putting together something for that on these community gardens? Because I think that's an important thing to move forward on.
Yeah, and this is Cass, and if any of them have the above-ground boxes so that folks don't have to bend down, that would be really cool to know too, because I know in my community, which is 55 plus, getting down on the ground it's getting increasingly more difficult, so people are putting up a lot of the above-ground boxes.
Okay, any other comments, any other communications?
This is Justin. Yes. One last thing that I didn't mention that was actually pretty important, I thought. And you guys know Arnie Dwyer, who's Arnie Dyer from ABSWA. And he said that he went to he was in one of the other meetings that he goes to, and they presented a graph, and I asked them to share it. Christina, I believe, has access to it. But it was basically showing a comparison of today of seniors versus workforce, and then what that looks like in about 10 years from now. And he said it's staggering, just what that looks like. And I'm a statistics person, so I want to see the numbers and how they roll. But I just thought that was something that just caveats a lot of things that we consistently talk about and touch on. But we're talking about gardening, and it kind of sparked me into the yard care portion of it, because that was another thing they mentioned, was the 70% of the people they polled said that they needed yard care as their biggest issue. And I don't see that getting any better. And I had a little sidebar with both Christina and Mike Reardon today. They're just talking freely about, you know, how that works. And they're like, yeah, well, you know, for the ADSWA, I was like, we were hoping to have a resource that we could, like, connect with in the landscaping world. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be difficult because of a number of different parameters there. Not just cost, but just the way the landscaping industry kind of is in general. So, but it's just something I wanted to put out there for people to kind of consider and think about if they've got any out-of-the-box ideas that could help forward think the problems that are inevitably going to come with all of that.
Is there any way you can connect with, like, kids in high school who need community service hours to graduate from high school? Because a lot of them would probably rather mow people's lawns in their neighborhood than, you know, work inside, you know, stuff like that. So that might be one avenue to think about in terms of that yard care.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, 50 years ago we could have done that, but nowadays with liability of using power tools, kids, things, stuff, lawnmowers, you see what I mean? It just comes into all that kind of stuff, and who's responsible for this if they run over the thing and blow up the sprinkler system, and now that needs to get fixed and all the stuff that goes along. I think it has to be someone who's a licensed, bonded, legitimate business that's taking that stuff on. Unfortunately, it'd be great, unless they want to sign some waivers and say, oh, let this kid. I'd say 90% of the kids nowadays don't know how to start a lawnmower.
They could get them lawnmowers that don't need to start. Ours is just a push. And I get my 19-year-old son out in the front yard whenever I can, and I'm happy to do it too.
But yes, I agree with you, Ellen. I mean, that is the demographic that we need to be able to help us. That is actually the answer, is to be able to have that be viable and to be able to engage some of these younger people, that to be able to do some of these basic tasks instead of having to find highly skilled labor to do it and pay the cost of that. So I think that's right, for sure.
Hey, that's a great conversation. Let's put a pin in that. I'd like to follow up with you on some of those ideas and see if there's some possibility in making that work. Any other communications? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.